Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel Unfinished Curious Mind. Today we are diving into the fascinating world of human anatomy, specifically focusing on the frontal view of the skull, which is known as Norma Frontalis. This perspective usually reveals the crucial details about the structure of our bones and face, which is essential in the field of anthropology, and forensic and medicines. So let's get started. So when we talk about Norma Frontalis, what is Norma Frontalis? Norma Frontalis, we are referring to the view of the skull from the front. This usually gives us the angle to clear look at the facial bones, including the forehead, as you can see in this picture, which is marked in the red color. We can see the facial bones, forehead, eye orbits, and nose, and last but not the least, mouth. So, why do we study this? Studying this perspective is incredibly important because it helps us to understand facial symmetry. It also gives us insight of craniofacial development and even the identity of individual when it comes to forensic cases. Next up, these are the bones that I have accumulated here. Some of the basic bones which you can observe within a flick of your finger. Uh, those are the frontal bones. So I am just marking these things. This is known as front. This we all know this part is called forehead. This bluish area is known as frontal bone. Maxilla, which is upper jaw. Maxilla here, upper jaw. This portion is known as maxilla. Then nasal bone. These hollow shaped area, which is if you visualize this as a nose, then this hollow area is known as hollow area, and little above those area are known as nasal bones. Then the zygomatic bones, which is in locally we call it, or in a regular terminology we call it as a cheekbone, but which is basically in a scientific term or in anatomical term we use as zygomatic bones. Then the thick portion, which is relatively thick in males, among men, sorry, known as mandible. These are the basic bones which I would recommend everybody to go through. Then, variation in human skull. This is also one of the fascinating aspect of, if we say, for example, studying Norma Frontalis. It basically is the variation that we can see mm, across different population and individuals. For example, metopic suture, which might be very prominent in some individuals and often completely fused in others. Similarly, the position of the landmark, like the nasion, which is uh, on the nose, can be very so nasion is a landmark which is often used in anthropometric measurement or kiniometric measurement. Nasion can be vary based on ancestry, age, and sex. These variations are key in studies of human diversity and can even help in identify the geographic origins of skeleton remains. Next, As I have just talked, or if you are listening to my audio or the listening the PPT, then you have listened that I have used the term which is metopic suture. We'll come to it later, but first I would like to discuss about frontal or coronal suture. So what is frontal or coronal suture? Frontal or coronal suture connects the frontal bones to the two parietal bones. As simple as that, it runs horizontally across the top of the forehead. Metopic suture is a very important aspect here. It runs vertically down the middle of the frontal bone. It is mostly visible in infants and often among some adults. If we talk about the significance of this suture, then it usually fuses after the age 6, but it can persist in some individuals. Here are some sutures, other sutures of the skull, which is coronal suture. It connects. Um, if you can see from this front view, then these sutures are fibrous, uh, or let me do one thing. First, let me explain what suture is. So it would help you to recall the other topic that I have talked about earlier, or I have made it earlier. So what is suture? Suture are the fibrous joints that connects the bone of the skull. So if we talk about the coronal suture, which is mostly prominent suture in Norma Frontalis, but predominantly it can be seen in Norma uh, Verticalis also. But yeah, now let us focus on Norma Frontalis. So the most prominent suture in Norma Frontalis is coronal suture, which usually runs horizontally across the top of the forehead and connects the frontal bone with the two parietal bones. And another important suture that I have talked about is metopic suture. Now let us come to the less important. Those are sagittal suture, which is basically runs along with the midline and connecting the two parietal bones. As we all aware of the fact that parietal bones are usually two, these big chunk of the big chunk of this is parietal bone. Here I am highlighting with green, and on the other side also, this is frontal bone, this is temporal bone, and here uh, is the stereo region. This joining is the red mark that I am doing is stereo, this area, this parietal bone, temporal bone, this area, this one is known as zygomatic, this cheekbone, this lower portion is known as mandible, mandible angle, this angle is mandible angle, and this the long shaft kind of a thing is known as uh, mandible ramus. This upper jaw is known as maxilla. These are teeth, and in this area there is a foramen which is known as mental foramen. I will further elaborate this or I will try to show this in another diagram. Before that, lambdoidal suture, which is slightly above from the occipital bone, and posterior position of parietal bone, and squamous suture, which connects with the two parietal bone, as you can see in this area, parietal bone with the two temporal bone. Next, we will quickly go to the landmarks that you can visualize or observe from the Norma Frontalis. Those are um, first we will talk about glabella. Glabella is the smooth area between the eyebrows, which is often used in anthropometric measurement, and Next, the nasion. Nasion is the intersection of frontal and nasal bone. I will try to show this landmark in a skull diagram that I have already made in this PPT, which will come later on. Then supraorbital foramen. Foramen, the word foramen denotes a hole. Rather than using the notch, I will tell everybody to focus on the using foramen word. What is supraorbital foramen? It is usually found on above the orbit. These supraorbital foramen, or I believe you all have heard of the term supraorbital torus. It is one of the distinguishing factor among humans and primates. For example, primates means gibbon, chimpanzees, gorillas. They have torus, which is more elevated uh, and bony crust on their forehead, which is slightly above to the eye sockets or eye orbits. Next, infraorbital foramen. Infraorbital foramen, which is also located below the eye socket, serving as a passage for the infraorbital nerve or vessels. Next, infraorbital foramen that I have already talked about. Now, in this diagram, we will just quickly recall the landmarks and probably just so these area, the frontal bone and the nasal bone, this area is known as nasion, yellow mark. Let me do the landmark first. And little above, I am highlighting it with blue color. This area is known as under the supraorbital ridge and between the two eyebrows. And this area is known as this landmark is known as glabella, which is these two, nasion and glabella, both used in anthropometric measurement. And this is frontal bone, which is on the forehead. Coronal suture, you can see it very vividly. Temporal line, these two parallel lines on the forehead, which is known as temporal line, and behind this line there is a bone which is called temporal bone. So you can also say that you usually can observe the temporal bone, and these are two eye sockets. This area is known as zygomatic bone, or in a local term we use it as let me make this purple. It is not visible. I'll try to change the color. This area is basically known as zygomatic area, and this upper jaw is known as maxilla. This shaft-like feature is known as mandible ramus, both the sides, and these are the teeth. This area is known as nasal spine. These little dots that you can see on mandible is known as mental foramen, the holes, and these depression under under this mental foramen there is a depression which is known as mental eminence. Though these two are not very major point. Oh, I forgot to mention about these thick lower portion is known as mandible. I have talked about frontal bone. You can see little bit portion of parietal bone also. So you can say that. Other than that, yeah, of course. Supraorbital ridge. This area is known as supraorbital ridge. I'll just recommend you to say not supraorbital foramen, rather use the supraorbital ridge. It is more fruitful. Because if you mention those words, it is highly possible that if you are on your viva or you are in front of the examiner, they can easily cross you for this. So you should be very good when it comes using those words or the terms specifically. So then the game is on your side then. Next up, if we talk about the aim of studying in anthropology or the significance of this, then we will probably profound this as it helps us to understand the obviously the complexities of human beings, both past and present, and highlighting factor is understanding human evolution, obviously. It helps us to understand how evolution mm, molded, to be very honest, when it comes of skeletal or the evolution of skull, expansion of brain, and everything. Then, if we talk about the biological diversity, uh, it is uh, it is like the prime or point of describing biological diversity or physical anthropology. So, in this subfield, it helps us study human biological variation. This also includes the study of human evolution and genetics and physical differences among human population. Understanding the biological diversity helps us to appreciate and adaptive strategies that have enabled humans to thrive in diverse environment. And last but not the least, forensic anthropology. Forensic anthropologists usually apply their knowledge of uh, what to say human osteology or craniometry to assist the criminal investigation. Not only this, it helps us or it helped them to identify and remain and provide the legal evidences for the cases. So this work is crucial in solving crimes and identifying victims and disaster. Uh, and there are so many aims and aims of studying these particular aspects in anthropology or in other discipline. For more such content, please follow my channel.